Good evening. Welcome to July 26, 2022 Park and Rec Commission. We'll go ahead and get started this evening. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and get started with roll call.
Hale. Cornwell.
Present.
Duzick.
Present.
Noyes.
Present.
Varanich.
Present.
Snyder.
Present.
Zebel Wolf.
All right. Any amendments to the agenda?
There are none.
There are none. Ceremonies, announcements, appointments, and presentations. None. Declaration of conflict. Hearing none. We'll go ahead and approve the minutes for June 28th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 28th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Cornwell.
Aye. Second.
Noyes.
Aye.
Duzick.
Aye.
Snyder.
Abstain.
Varanich.
Aye. All right. Any citizens' issues this evening? Hearing none. Unfinished old business?
Done.
None? All right. New business, potential renaming of the community garden.
So what you have before you tonight is continuation. It first started 2 months ago at the end of your Park and Rec Commission meeting about the possibility of naming a park after Rick Nordham. That fell in line with when we were looking at the name of the sports complex in Tullamore. We continued with some discussion during the workshop last month, and you asked it to be brought forward just so the people in the television audience can understand. In following our park naming policy, to name it after a person, two things have to happen. One is if they're living, they have, I better read it. That's what it wants to say. Okay. To name it after a living person, they have to have 10 or more years of active community service in Post Falls. If they have passed away, it has to have happened at least 2 years previously or more. And the reason for that, it may seem kind of strange, but when somebody does pass away, there's always that reaction that we want to honor them. Sometimes time gives perspective on that, and it's not that we don't honor those people, it's simply we take naming parks seriously. We try to name them at the start, but if there is to be a name change, the procedure would be that proposal comes forward to you folks, whether it's initiated from the public or initiated from you as a commission or even as a city council. It still comes back to you guys to start the process. We then go through with that discussion. We look at it to make sure it meets some set criteria. If that's what you folks vote on, then we open it up to a 14-day comment period so that the public has a chance to speak up. If there is opposition or concern, we bring it back to you guys so that you can at least discuss it and then either confirm what you decided on or change your mind. Okay. Criteria for park naming, we'd look at the geographical names, the proposed usage, any geological features, historical or cultural significance, and then common usage. But when you get to a person, that exceptional community service, it becomes a little tougher. They have to be involved in a leadership role in one of the categories. Leadership within a civic organization, devoted to community involvement. They have to have been active for that 10 years. They can also look at serving underserved populations, handicap. They promote and direct community activities which have clearly enriched the community and the residents. That can be whether it's a youth program, adult programs, any of that. And even senior citizens. So in a nutshell, that's it. And in our discussions and in a review, Rick Nordman had met all of that. He was active in the Rotary. He was active in the Post Falls Park and Rec Commission 15 years at least. He was chair for 5 of those. He was active in the Knights of Columbus, several other groups. He was a founding member of the community volunteers, so he more than met a lot of those areas. So I'm open for any questions you might have, or if there's discussion that you folks want to have.
I did reach out to Danny prior to this evening, knowing that she had a passion for naming the community garden. Her suggestion would be the Richard Norman Memorial Community Garden. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission and share her thoughts and feelings on that. I support that. He was highly involved in the community and did a lot. Is that a long name for a park?
It's a little long. Can name it that. Only suggestion I might have, knowing the family, that we'd want to talk to them. They might be more comfortable with Rick versus Richard, but either way it works.
Does anybody else have suggestions or input or other people you can think of in the community?
I don't know that it's necessary to say memorial, and I think it's obvious that it's a memorial one. I mean, that shortens it a little bit, and it's kind of redundant.
You can always have a plaque that then, in something like this, it would make sense on or around the building to have something that explains the role he played. The fact that he was instrumental on helping us get that up and running, volunteered a lot of time and energy the first couple years, getting the donations and working in the garden and everything else. So.
I think that's pretty fitting.
So we're all on the same page. We're looking at Rick Nordman Community Garden.
Yeah, I think so.
And if you're okay, if the family would prefer to see a more formal with the Richard, but.
Yeah, up to the family, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to rename the community garden the Rick Nordman Community Garden, contingent on the family and what they want the first name to be.
I'll second.
Duzig,
Aye.
Varanich,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Noyes,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Keep him on his toes.
Keep me on my toes.
Perfect. On to administrative staff reports. We'll start with an update and bid openings for Crown Pointe turf renovation and roadway on Cecil Sports Complex.
I'm gonna let these two guys kind of take team on it, just real quick updates, because it's kind of in my mind, a celebration of or happy news, I guess is maybe the better term, so.
Good evening, Brian Myers, Parks Manager. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this project that's coming up. We solicited bids at the end of June, opened those week of Post Falls Festival. It was a crazy Thursday as we're setting up booths and vendors and getting back over here to open up bids, but we were able to receive 2 bids for the regrading project at Crown Pointe. Total scope of work is mass grading of the open field. Generally, the interior of the pathway at Crown Pointe is going to be the limits of work. We are going to be modifying some irrigation system that will situate on the northwest side of the park beyond the path, and that is to complete the looped main line to increase the head-to-head coverage and improve the overall function of that irrigation system. There's some means in there for them to provide sediment control and dust control on the site as the work is going on. And then we had a bid alternate for sodding the landscape. And fortunately, our bids came in competitive enough that the leading bid on this, we were able to select and move forward with that bid alternate 8. So that'll be good for that neighborhood to have instant lawn instead of waiting for that to grow back in again for the second time in about 4 years. So base bid for the La Riviere was at $356,842, and Selling Construction came in at $247,000. So pretty wide range, and I think it kind of shows the demand that's on our community and the building community right now. Again, the sod alternate A, we budgeted $300,000 for this project, so having both of those come in under the budget item was a big win. We did ask council for a contingency on that as well, to be able to offer up to 7% for changes. We had a limited scope as far as our engineering design on this. It was mostly done in-house, so thanks to Robbie for that work. And I think the city received some big savings in doing that work in-house, but we have that little extra contingency if we should need, if we have any unforeseens that may come up as the project goes on. So with that, stand for any questions on the Crown Pointe project. We're looking at a pretty tight timeline. It should be complete by October 1st is what our contract documents state.
Great.
So.
It's moving fast.
Okay.
Good evening, Robbie Quinn, Parks Planner. A little more informal. I haven't prepared anything. We're not quite as far along in our process as Brian's for the Cecil Road construction, which is at the Tullamore Sports Complex. So we did put that out to bid about 4 weeks ago, and we had our bid opening last Tuesday. Had 2 bidders, the same 2 as that project, La Riviere and Selland, and they both came in under our engineer's estimate of about $130,000. So that was a pretty good savings there. But this project has not been presented to council yet. That'll be on the August 2nd meeting, so for their approval. But basically that project will entail finishing up Cecil Road, curb, gutter, swale, landscaping, multi-use path, and street lights all along our road frontage on Cecil. So, and again, that'll be probably, we got about a 60-day construction window for that one, so they'll have to kind of squeeze it in also before the asphalt plant shut down. So any questions on that? All right.
I think the big thing there is not only did we get bids on our projects, but they went in below the engineer's estimate. Mind you, we had to redo some of those estimates, but still that's a real positive thing for us because we've been very nervous.
And
So.
having it done this year is a bonus rather
Yeah.
than waiting. Good.
Okay.
Wrap up of Post Falls Festival.
Tracy Stevenson, the recreation manager. Should have had Haley do this. This is her pet project, but she passed on all the good information. So the event was July 8th, 9th, and 10th, and we were super fortunate. It wasn't roasting hot. It was just warm. It wasn't as hot as last year, but we had 85 booths, which was up 16 from 2021. We had 17 food vendors, which it says was up by 4. And then our one-day craft vendors that we normally just do at the Grand Pavilion, we had enough to do the Grand Pavilion and the picnic shelter because we had 36 vendors. We actually did the picnic shelter and a little bit outside of the picnic shelter and a little bit outside of the Grand Pavilion. Haley, so one of the good changes, I'm just going to kind of go over some of her changes, was she scheduled all the food vendors for their move-in time because I'm not usually down there, but between Brian and Dave, they get to see the craziness of it, and so they were scheduled, and so it got them kind of all in place and not worrying about the different hitches and stuff like that. We changed the layout just a little bit for the food area where we put in our tables and stuff, which worked out. We had our ATM again this year, which has been a great addition. I think it's been like 4 years now we've had it, but we'd had some issues with cards getting eaten and stuff. But this year it all went smooth. There's plenty of money, and we didn't have anything like that. Then some of the things that we were just talking about for some possible changes for next year was if anyone came down there as normal, but it keeps getting busier and busier every time, was Spokane Street and Parkway were quite the congestion, so we've talked about maybe getting some traffic control for that instead of just putting our parks crew out there on that. We'd also like to step it up a little bit and do like a list of vendors and maybe their menus online, because a lot of people come down there specifically to possibly come down for dinner time, so to get that kind of online for people to have. Wasn't a whole lot of changes. We thought it went fairly smooth. It actually went really well. One thing we'd like to also add is to do a traffic trail counter. We've done it before and knew we had about 15 to 20,000, but this year they were all out and being used, but we'd like to bring it back for next year. Also to control maybe some of the parking, as we had gotten rid of it with the whole COVID times, but bring back the shuttle. We always have our extra parking like at Templins, and City Hall hasn't been as much because we have now the addition of the car shows, so we need to really make sure Templins, I drove by it a couple times as I was running back and forth to the office, and people were using their First Street really well, but they weren't using the dirt lot as much, so I think if we brought it back, that would probably kind of help them out with that. Also on our Friday, we noticed like we have our big wheel race and then we have our movie, but Saturday night we don't have any large entertainment. So we're thinking about trying to schedule something for Saturday to do out there. We as an in-house department have kind of talked about the dogs on leash and trying to work through that, which we're working through with the police department, because as we all know, special events, people love to bring their animals, so we're working on that. But other than that, we felt like, and actually Haley said our revenue was up 21,000, or it wasn't up, I should say, our revenue was, she didn't give me what it was, our revenue was over 22,000. So that was really good, and we thought it was a great weekend and everyone seemed to have fun. We had our, Haley also did like kind of her exit going around and talking to the vendors and seeing how they did, and they all seemed to do really well and had a great weekend, so that's it.
Thank you, Tracy. Commission comments or questions for Brian, Robbie, or Tracy? Nope.
Got one. How's staffing? Has it improved at all since we last talked about it?
Ticket, you want to go? He's smiling, so that must
Yeah.
say something's a little more positive.
Somebody said staffing, that means I get to get on my soapbox. No. It did improve slightly, but we largely improved that on the park side through some really young folks that will be heading back to school here shortly. So we were able to stop some gaps and be able to maintain levels of service for the most part throughout the season. We did have to drop ticket booth to just 4 days a week of operations because we didn't have folks in that. We were able to get some changes for 1 year for the wages, that wage started out recruiting at $7.25 an hour, and we were able to find 3 folks to fit into that role initially, mostly returners, and we were able to get some changes to that wage structure to be a little more competitive in the marketplace. And we just hired our last one to fill out those ranks, so we'll be moving back to 7 days a week. It's not only the ticket booth, ticketing positions that are required to operate that. We also have to have folks in the park, because we can't have cash handling with only one person. So to be able to count out till and open till, and just to have somebody in the park, we have to have 2 people. So we actually added 1 additional ticket taker, so we're going to be manning that park with 2 ticket takers to operate and run the rest of the season out that way. The other dynamic that's at play is our Mo crews. We've got a couple of folks that are heading off to college here middle of August, so we'll start to see that dip a little bit. But we're still running, I think last I looked, our salaries are running about 60–65% of what we were last year to date. So that's probably the best snapshot of how far we're down. We're down about 1/3 of our labor pool over last year. And then on the rec side, I think we're sitting a little better. And construction side's full with their staff. They were able to find seasonal as well. So.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
How are we doing on vandalism? Summer's in full swing. I just wondered. where we
He's
were
not
at.
smiling.
Sorry.
No, it's not much change. So it's still pretty rough. North side of town is primarily the area that's being hit hard. We've started upgrading some lock systems, so hopefully that'll help with some of the evening. But we're finding right now that a lot of these vandalism occurrences are happening midday in occupied parks. So we really can use some help from the community of letting us know when things are happening, so that we can respond quickly. Our timelines are not as tight as we'd like for some of that cleanup, but I had email when I came in Monday morning of somebody that found something. By the time I dispatched crews to go out and clean it, our cleaning crew had already addressed it. So our crews are still catching most of it. The challenge with some of it is it's pretty minor. It's just constant. So we're trying to be judicious in our local police department's time, and we're only using things that may have, directed towards an individual, or hate speech, or elements that are extremely vulgar, or that sort of thing. If it's nuisance level, our crews are taking quick pictures of it, and they're cleaning it up, and they're not filing police reports, because our PD is taxed right now as well. And we're trying to use their time wisely as well as our own. But it's still present, but we're not capturing as much data on it as we otherwise would, because we're just cleaning up along the way.
So you will be seeing some areas where we use the porta potties because we have to shut down the restrooms. Either the damage, we can't fix at that point, or lock systems, everything, so that is an impact. We've had a couple fires set, minor ones, but still it causes an issue and it can get out of control.
Fires and flooding, people flooding toilets and sinks.
Now, is there
Unfortunately.
signage saying, like, if you see something, say something, call this number?
We don't really have anything posted that way.
Because I know, like, the public, they're not going to call 911 or something, so I just don't know if people know who to call.
The police they have a reporting text that you can do, and that, we get a few of those things. We push it pretty hard online.
Yeah.
And then we have our park repair at postfalls.gov, because our email address has changed this week. So that those come directly to our supervisor staff. That's the quickest way to get us routed for things that have already happened, not something that's in action.
Would it be a difficult thing to have something posted at the parks? I love that idea, because people that are there are like,
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
feel like the majority of people, A, don't know what to do, and they're not gonna call the police department for, I don't know, somebody with a
Sure.
Sharpie, or something.
Not extremely difficult, other than the timing. It's probably something that we'd have to implement over the winter.
Yeah, we'll look into
We
it,
can
but I
look
do
at it.
know, I can tell you, I get a lot of emails.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
do get a few calls too.
Yeah.
It's the thing of living in a small town, and my phone number hasn't changed in a long time.
On a positive note, Brian, has anybody taken or have a number of people taken advantage of the free parking pass for Post Falls residents?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think we're nearing 1,200 passes handed out.
Good.
So
That's awesome.
our crews are, tallying up and scanning those when they come into the park. And for the most part, it's been pretty well received. We've had a few comments for folks on the boat launch fees. But for the most part, they say something about it and then pass over the money and come on in. So, I guess economic theory would say we're probably hitting it about the right spot. But, yeah.
Any other comments from the commission? No? Dave, anything else from you? Perfect, meeting adjourned.